Hi. I know that the Odyssey seems like a daunting read to many of you. It encompasses over 300 pages of our textbook, but I want to offer you some assurances. It's not really a daunting text. You need to have a basic overview of the plot to understand it. And if you remember from reading Aristotle's Poetics, Aristotle summed up the Odyssey in just about 3 or 4 sentences. Of the Odyssey, Aristotle said it's the story of a man working his way back home. He did give a little bit more detail about that, but that's the overall gist of the Odyssey. We have Odysseus is trying to get back home. He's been away for 10 years fighting the Trojan War, and he's trying to work his way back home. It takes about another 10 years for him to get back home because the god Poseidon is angry with Odysseus. Now, where the text gets somewhat confusing, and where it seems like more than just a simple story of a man trying to get back home, is that we've got a couple of levels going on. We have the heavenly realm. We see the gods talking. We see Zeus and Athena talking. We see Poseidon talking at one point. We see Helios talking. So we see what's going on in the heavenlies, but then we also have the story that's going on down on the earth. But that's not all. Homer wants to make it just a little more complicated for us. We also see what's going on in Odysseus' hometown of Ithaca, and we see where Odysseus is. Okay, well that's two different settings. They're sort of in their place, what's going on simultaneously. But wait, let's add another level to this. When Odysseus lands on one island, he tells his story about what happened in the past. So now we've got not only the future or the present to contend with, but we also have the past story. And the trick is in separating where all of these stories lie. I've given you in your handout an overview of the Odyssey. I've tried to break it down somewhat, so if you could please go to your handouts page. I have it in the texts folder for this class. I want you to look at the overview of the Odyssey. I tried to break it down. Books 1 and 4 and book 15 talk about Telemachus and his story specifically. Now, Telemachus is the son to Odysseus. The first 4 books of the Odyssey are called the Telemachia because they deal specifically with Telemachus, and they set him up as this young boy on the brink of manhood. We see the suitors are just tearing apart his house, just raiding it of all of its riches and its substance, pining for the love of Telemachus' mom and Odysseus' wife, named Penelope. So that's what is set up in those first 4 books. But then we have books 5 through 14. And in books 5 through 14, we have the story of Odysseus. We see Odysseus trying to get off of Calypso's island. When he finally gets off Calypso's island, he lands on another island, Alcinous's island. When he's on Alcinous's island, it is there that he tells the story of all the events that happened to him up until this point of arriving on Alcinous's island. So in those stories, we learn about the adventures of the Cyclops. We learn about Circe's island, the Sirens. We hear about all of those stories on how he got there. Then we see Alcinous helping Odysseus back home, and Odysseus eventually landing on Ithaca. Then book 15, we flash back over to Telemachus. Telemachus is coming back to Ithaca, and then in books 16 and 17 we see the father and son reunited, and the rest of the text of the Odyssey is about those two trying to rid the island of the suitors and convince Penelope that this is indeed Odysseus returned back home. So that's a brief overview of the Odyssey. Please don't be concerned. There are so many character names. I wish that you would also print off the handout, the character list handout, and refer to it often. Your main characters are Odysseus, who's trying to return home, his wife Penelope, and Telemachus, their son. You're also going to see references to Agamemnon and Clytemnestra. Agamemnon suffered a fate of essentially his wife murdered him. His wife and his wife's lover murdered him when he returned home. And it's sort of set up to parallel Odysseus returning home. So we can pick up sort of this anxious vibe of Odysseus, returning home. Are the suitors of Penelope going to kill him, or is Penelope a faithful wife? And all of that plays into this story. So it's a really good read, and if you read it closely, I don't think you should have too many problems. Just make sure you have that character list. Make sure you're aware of the overview.